everything and tell the truth. You know I love him more than life. Once you know, listen to that again. Listen to all that again. Once you know, it starts, I don't even know how many versions he's told by now. He was asked about all of them, and then some. It starts with, my son did it, he told me he did it, and I feel horrible. That's how you know he's lying. He doesn't feel anything, ever. That dog was broke. And the very next morning, you heard those calls. You can listen to stuff again. If you need to hear people, please listen to them again. Notice the tone of his voice as each conversation starts. It's different with each person. Does he cry when he's talking to John? No. John, tell the truth, man. He's threatening him. Cassie has to be reminded of loyalty because, I mean, she was going to falsely confess to tampering with physical evidence. That was important to keep her in line. Does he control you? I don't know. But you can listen to that stuff again. And you should, because it's your job. This is a murder case. Over a year goes by. Joshua Young is charged with murder. Not complicity, murder. There's one thing the prosecution committed to in the beginning of this, and that is Joshua Gowker killed Trace Wicker. He had involvement. So for over a year, there was a theory that is no longer their theory. And suddenly, in the court system, we call them snitches. That sounds so negative. There are people that are quite honest that come forward that are incarcerated. And again, I'm not saying whether they were telling the truth or not. I don't really care. Because I know, even if Josh Gowker talked to him, he's lying anyway. You can't get caught up in that merry-go-round. Because if you just step back and look at the big picture, why would he be trying to save his son from this murder conviction? Everybody seems to think it's going to happen if he dropped him in to begin with. It's just round and round and round. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that you probably figured out while he was up here. But you might not fully appreciate until you really think about it. It's not the physical violence so much for that guy. He likes to mess with your head. He likes it. And he's good at it. And he duped the police. And then he duped them again. And he duped everybody. He's good at it. He's just good at it. At Liberty, Gowker ran that scene. He talked nothing but, let me see the body, and those black kids from Bridgewood. And he laughed about that over and over. And when I said you had to have a red herring, he said, you gotta. And there's something about him, even then, that your guard just comes down. Even when he's talking about stuff like this, he's likable. He was allowed to have Amanda in his interview, despite the fact that that flies in the face of policy for any criminal investigation, particularly one this serious. He was allowed to see the body after just on and on and on with two separate detectives an hour and a half after they knew for sure who it was. And had to know this guy is somebody we gotta look at. It's not Joshua Young's fault that that stuff happened. It's not, oh, well, we didn't follow that, but, you know, that means that he was just trying to see the body because he really didn't do this. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. There was a very selective collection of evidence from 1356 Vim Drive on May 11th, 2011. A total of 4 pieces of evidence was collected from that house. And that's because initially the assumption was it had to be something sharp. There were 3 bats in the house. that sat there until June the 6th when the house was searched again, and that's all they took that time. And the explanation was, well, that pertained to the animal cruelty investigation. They took a couple of knives the first time and some swabs, not from him, from Amanda and from Gowker. There's the issue of phones, and we talked about this. They never got Gowker's records. They tried much later, tried to get them, and those records were gone. There were 2 phones that were connected to that 356 number, which we confirmed was Gowker's. And as of when Gowker left town and ended up in Alabama, that phone was in Cassie's possession, and they talked on that phone. We went through the phone records, how many calls there were to that 356 number. We didn't give an exact number. We didn't sit there and count them. But the detective agreed they were always on the phone. And Cassie's work number's on there too. And Angelique's number's on there too, as late as November 2011. These people were all talking. It's harder for him to keep the control when he's incarcerated, but he can do it, and he did. And that was one of the reasons, as he laughed in agreement with me, he knew he couldn't get arrested that day because, well, it is harder. It's possible, but it's harder. Plus, there's the recording issue, and he used that when he needed to his advantage and didn't when, just totally circumvented the jail call system. Because you can talk on the phone without anybody knowing who is on there. But after Alabama, the detectives drive straight back to Louisville, get Cassie on the phone for a minute, talk to her, and they go arrest Joshua Young for murder, and that's what they had. They had probable cause, we're told, that day. Reasonable minds can disagree. You've heard that Joshua Young confessed to several people, all of whom came in, one of whom said she didn't know if Mr. Gowker controls her. But let's start with Angelique. She's hid Joshua Gowker out twice now. You can review testimony. If you don't take me at my word for what she said about the U.S. Marshals coming over, watch that again. Just watch it again. They dropped their card off at one point. What? I thought he was in jail in Alabama. It's a completely ridiculous explanation, and she was happy to see him. That's just all there is to it. Because he's so likable, even though he's dangerous. On the phone in Alabama, Gowker plays her and Jahara against one another. There's a reason for that. Jahara couldn't recall anything at all because she was being drugged. She said she wasn't drinking, but in fact she'd previously said she was drinking. We talked about what happens when you mix whatever she was taking, that she claimed she was taken by force. That wasn't her fault. She can't remember it. It's all a blur, except for one gleaming moment. She was totally sober, and this horrible version of events comes out. It's just really wicked sounding. And that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And Angelique and Jahara both told you they're scared of this guy. There's a reason he had to tell them that it was okay to talk. And he was never going to tell them it was okay to accuse him of murder. All you got to do is put Joshua Gowker in the spot that Joshua Gowker put him in. That's all he's doing, a little transference, as I asked him. That's all it is. It's not a difficult case to understand. Get past this stuff with this guy. John gives 2 versions of this confession. One of them involves essentially the exact same word-for-word version that Gowker gives the police. The whole thing about what time is it, he pulls his phone out, goes to put it back, and I just hit him. He says it in the same words as Gowker. And I asked him, does that sound familiar to you? No. Or maybe he didn't recall. Joshua Young then allegedly strips all his clothes off, runs naked through the neighborhood, drops them in a dumpster. I don't know. I don't even know. Disposes of the weapon. In the second version, that's more in line with Cassie's. Dumping evidence. The weird thing about John is he tells you that the morning after Trey died, but before a body was found, Gowker told him Trey was dead. Of course, he also says that Joshua Young did it. Never says how anybody really confirmed that at that point. It's all a matter of transference. Just don't get caught up in it. Step back and look. If he's got a hand in what's being said, just disregard it. Just disregard it. That's how we got here. And they're all communicating. Cassie and John are a couple. A dysfunctional couple, and that's not criticism, but I think we agree. And there's a control thing going on there too. But the communication, if you're talking to Cassie, you're getting to John. If you're talking to Angelique, you're talking to Jahara. Jahara lied about the last time she had talked to Angelique. I never talked to her again. She lived with Angelique's mom at 1242 Springdale. We went over that. We went over that a couple of times. She couldn't remember where she went when she got back to Louisville, but she knew right around this time she lived at Angelique's mom's. Angelique confirmed she lived at Angelique's mom's. And Angelique told you the last time they talked was August 2011. There was a lot going on in terms of falsely accusing Joshua Young of murder at that point. There was a lot going on. They all got their story straight because they were all talking. And this guy's always talking. As for the medical testimony, it's clear something skinnier than a Louisville Slugger was used to kill this child. I'm not going to put graphic pictures up here because they upset everybody, and I understand that. All you have to do is look at those injuries that are diagonal. All you have to do is look at them. There is no way that a full-size Louisville Slugger bat did that. There's no way. And don't forget about that picture where Cassie fills in blood. That's how you know this is ridiculous. It's like a game of Clue almost after a while. It's more than reasonable doubt. It's way more than that. It's also very apparent that those injuries were inflicted by one person. You saw this demonstration, and that really highlights what Dr. Nichols meant. Look at those injuries. Same positioning. The person was in the same position, and he demonstrated how that would be inflicted. What about his facial injuries? Joshua Gowker didn't expect me to ask him whether he sneaks up behind people all the time, but he does, and he acknowledged that. Don't take him at his word. He sneaks up behind people. He punches them in the face hard. He's violent. He's very, very violent. He strangles people from behind sometimes. Don't forget those injuries to Amanda's neck. He comes up behind you. It was a sneak attack. That doesn't mean that Joshua Young did anything at all. He walks up behind you. He's a coward. 72-year-old man in his car, choking him with his own belt and punching him in the face with the other hand, his right hand, to the left side of the face. Keeping somebody hostage, that sounds familiar, overnight, after sneaking up behind him, punching him in the face and kicking him while he's down, and he acknowledged that. The experts might disagree on what happened to Trey's face, but that puts it to rest. This guy did this by himself. He wanted to do it all by himself. Nobody else was going to get to do this but him. It was his thing. Joshua Young talked to the police on several occasions. Joshua Young told them he lived at 1356 Bend Drive, and he really didn't most of the time. But you know what? So did Amanda, and so did Joshua Gowker. Nobody was being straight with them about where they lived. And this is a kid that was in foster care who was so happy to be with his dad. Despite the dysfunction going on, that was his dad. It doesn't matter, that was his dad. And you give the address you're supposed to be at when you're involved with CPS. You just do that. And the adults did. Listen to that statement at Liberty again. You're always hearing about how he doesn't cry. He just stares ahead like some gremlin or something. He's crying on that tape. He also doesn't know what to answer with. He doesn't know the answers. I believe, listen to that statement again. Just listen to it again. And don't forget, we asked Amanda, did Gowker say anything about Bridgewood as you're going up to Liberty? She did not recall. Robotically did not recall. That guy was planting seeds from way before this happened.